So let's all take a deep breath together as we continue this march through March. We're halfway through this month. It's unbelievable. I say that every week, but it really is unbelievable that we continue to move forward as quickly as we seem to be moving. This month of March, we are talking about, the theme all month is being in service. Being in service is the theme. And I was talking last week about don't do service, but be service. Be service. We start out with the being of service, then we move into being in service, and then we move into just being service. And that's what I have been just seeing all around me. It seems that, I guess because service is in my consciousness. Everywhere I look, I see service happening, service, and I see more and more people just being service. And so what I'm aware of also is that there are times when we are wanting to be of service, we are wanting to be in service, we are wanting to be service, and then there's something within us that says, why bother? Why bother? And there's so many reasons that we come up with the why bother. Sometimes we're frustrated, sometimes we get discouraged, sometimes we get afraid, sometimes we are fearing criticism. There are times we tell ourselves that, well, it's too late, I haven't done anything before, whatever it may be. It could be service to God, it could be service to our community, it could be service to ourselves. But whatever it is, there's something that can hold us back. There's something that makes us feel like what we have to offer is not enough. What we can do is not enough. We're afraid that somebody may criticize, somebody may look at us differently. So we may be doing things differently. Hopefully we do, because we are each unique individuals and we each have the opportunity to allow our own lights to shine. We don't have to be like somebody else, but we allow those things to hold us back sometimes. We allow those things to make us say, why bother? It won't make a difference anyway. Why bother? My little bit won't change things anyway. Why bother? And so I'm inviting you this day, this time, to really look at the times that you if you don't say it verbally, if you don't verbalize that why bother, when you are in that consciousness, that why bother consciousness, when you're in the attitude of, oh, why bother? And just not taking the time or taking the care or taking whatever it is that it takes for you to just be all that you can be, that you can be of service in this world. You can be service, as I said, to God, to others, to yourself. And so I'd like us to just really explore a little bit about that why bother, what gets us into that, and how we get out of that today. One thing I'd like you to do is to recognize that why bother is a withholding consciousness. And the first thing I'd like you to do is to be willing to release that withholding consciousness. Because when we're saying why bother, that means that we aren't going to do whatever it is that we're saying why bother about. When we're saying why bother, we're not going to put ourselves into it. And when we're not giving of ourselves, we're not truly giving. When we're not giving of ourselves, there's something missing. When we're not giving of ourselves, then we're not receiving all that we can receive, because as Ernest Holmes was saying, giving and receiving all are part of the same. Everything moves in circles. And so we have to give and be willing to give of our love and our service to others with our entire being, with all of who we are. And when we're not willing to do that, we're being withholding. When we start to compare ourselves to others and feel like what somebody else is giving is more than what we're giving, or we're giving more value to what someone else does than the value of our own abilities, without recognizing that God gave us all unique abilities and unique talents. And rather than moving into that place of comparison, which when we start to compare always makes us feel come up with the short end of the stick, as my mother used to call it, because we don't generally compare ourselves with equals. We compare ourselves when we feel like for some reason we have to compare ourselves to somebody else. It's always to somebody that we feel is doing more, or sometimes we feel that person is more. And so we start to compare, and that makes us feel less than. Why? That's a disservice to ourselves. That's a disservice to ourselves. So honor what I call the 11th commandment: thou shalt not compare. Thou shalt not compare. Don't compare yourself to others. uh, allow yourself to open up and to release that 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 urge, if you will, to withhold yourself, to withhold the allness and the fullness of who you are, to withhold or to hold back the givingness that you can do, that you can be a part of. Let go of that desire to just hold back and to withhold, and just allow yourself to live full out. Allow yourself to just live full out and give all of you that you have. Know your own value, and value your value. Recognize your own value, and then stand in that, and bother. Stand in that and bother. Bother to do it. Don't stand back saying why bother. Bother. Do it anyway. And you know what? As you continue to do that, you will start to really appreciate who you are. You will start to appreciate the value that you bring. You will start to recognize your own talents, your own abilities, your own uniqueness, and you will start to really honor yourself. And that's when we are giving service to ourselves. When we start to really honor who we are, what we bring, how we contribute to everything. And so I invite you to release that why bother consciousness, release that withholding consciousness, and just allow yourself to be all that you were created to be. And that's how we serve the world. That's how we serve each other. That's how we are in that place of being service, as we are being in service, because we are bringing our full selves. We're bringing all of who we are to everything we do. And that's what I really invite us all to do. The next thing I'd like you to really consider is that recognize that everything is temporary. Everything is temporary. Nothing lasts forever. And this too shall pass. For everything is temporary. And that's something for us to really, really keep in mind. I was so aware of that this week when I recognized that today, March 14th, is Sunday, March 14th, is the 1 year anniversary of our last in-person service in the sanctuary at Creative Living Fellowship. Last year it was March 15th, but it was the same Sunday of the year. It was the second Sunday of the year. And that was our last time there. And even though we had heard of COVID and we'd heard of the pandemic, we were doing the bowing and the namaste and the acknowledging each other with, instead of a hug that we do so gloriously at CLF. Instead of doing that, we were nodding to each other and making eye contact. We knew that we'd be going, things were changing. And when the next week we decided that we couldn't come back in for service any longer, we thought, okay, this will last for maybe a couple of months. We'll be out, maybe a couple of months, maybe till summer, and then we'll be back, and then all this will be gone, and everything will be back to normal, whatever that means. Take a breath, because that didn't happen. That really did not happen. That here we are 1 year later. Who would have thought that we would have been out for a full year? Who would have thought we would not have been able to see each other for a whole year, have our services at CLF for a whole year? Who would have thought so many changes would have happened, the changes that we are experiencing right now, not only in our individual lives, but in our life as a community. And so what I really want us to recognize is that day that we were going around nodding to each other and bowing to each other and acknowledging each other, I hope that we cherished those moments, that we looked in each other's eyes. I hope that we really were fully present as we were doing that. And I hope that if we weren't there, it's still not too late for us to start right now, to recognize everything is temporary, and so to live fully and to be fully present in everything we do, with every person, with every situation, not taking any situation for granted or any person for granted, but really, really bringing our full selves, our full beingness into whatever it is we're doing. Yesterday we had the Free Cycle event at CLF. It was such a wonderful time. It was such a glorious time to see people we hadn't seen in a long time. We couldn't hug each other. We were socially distancing and we were wearing masks. And sometimes uh, we had to sort of look at each other twice to try to figure out who is that. Uh, as well as we know people, there's something about having that mask on. You're not real sure who it is you're looking at. Um, but we still, there was that love, there was that connection. It was such a wonderful time. And I invited in our opening prayer when we got there, the team of people who were working with this event yesterday. I invited us all to savor the moment, to be in that time, because the time would pass so quickly, and there would never be that same configuration of people together again. But to be there and to be fully present there. And it was such a wonderful time to see, as I said, see people we hadn't seen in a year, to talk to people, to be, just to be around, for me, just to be around people, because I spend a lot of time at home alone, and just to be around people, and just exchange the energy exchange, to walk around the building, to walk around the place with our hearts full in that bittersweet time that we spent there, recognizing that this was, everything had changed. Everything had changed. And I think all of us who were there yesterday got a chance to really understand what it means that everything is temporary. Everything passes. And so it seemed that CLF, that building was going to be there forever. And now we know it isn't. And now we know it isn't. Now we know that we are releasing the building. We're releasing the building. We're releasing the property. And I'm trusting that the people who came through yesterday were able to really, really savor those moments, really, really be present, really, really be of service to each other, to the community, and to themselves throughout that time, because everything changes so quickly. This year that we have gone through, even though it doesn't seem like a year has passed already, this year that we have gone through shows us that life changes on a dime. That life changes on a dime, like that. It's changed. And so it's important for us to be present, to be grounded, to be anchored, and to recognize that although all these things that change around us, that the changeless is that presence of God. The changeless, the anchor in our lives is God. The anchor everywhere is God. And so all these conditions change, people change, situations change, circumstances change, events change, all that changes. God is the changeless. And so we have to start with the changeless. And then and recognize that is permanent, that is eternal. God is eternal. And so recognizing that we come together more and live our lives more in God. And so that when things around us and the temporariness of things around us begin to reveal themselves, things start to really change so quickly, so quickly, so quickly. When all that happens, we are anchored in the thing that's changeless, the thing that's changeless. And that's what I have to remind us all to do, that we have spent a lot of time going back to the free cycle event. We spent a lot of time over the last few weeks preparing for that free cycle. But you know what? Those of us who have been there working at the center have had the opportunity to spend that time with each other, to have that opportunity to be around as we release uh, uh, um, items that were there, that personal property that was there that belonged to CLF, releasing it out into the community or wherever. But just the idea of being able to spend time together, to share this time together, to be of service to the community, to be of service to each other, to be of service to ourselves. That was such a precious time. And that time passed. That time passed. Yesterday, when Free Cycle was over, that time passed. The temporariness of that was shown to us because it passed. But what we wanted to do was to make sure our hearts were open, our minds were open, our entire being was open to experience fully that experience of being together, of connecting. And so that's what I'm inviting you to do in every aspect of your life. Every aspect of your life. Recognize the temporariness of life. Recognize that everything, and this too shall pass. And this too shall pass, whatever it is. And so when we feel like, oh, well, I won't do it today, maybe I'll just wait until tomorrow. Oh, I won't go this time, maybe I'll just go next time. That's a why bother. That's a why bother. Don't do it. Don't do it. I invite you, bother, make sure you bother and do these things so you get to experience the allness and the fullness of life and get to be all that you were created to be, because that's how we get to experience and to be all that we were created to be, by being open and receptive and willing to be giving of ourselves, even when we feel like, oh, why bother? When we open our hearts and we open our minds and we open our entire beings, then we get a chance to experience life in a way that we haven't experienced before. And we get a chance to give to others in a way that we've not given before. And we get a chance to receive from others in ways that we haven't received before. This is what the full circle is all about, the giving and the receiving and the givingness of life. And so that's what I'm inviting you to do. That's what I'm inviting you to do. And so the third thing that I'm inviting you to do is to step into the consciousness of new beginnings. Step into the consciousness of new beginnings. Step into the consciousness of new beginnings. You know, we are closing a building. We are releasing a building. We are not releasing Creative Living Fellowship. We're not releasing our community. We're not letting go of our community. We're not selling our community. We're just selling a building, and the building has meant a lot. I'm not minimizing that, and I say this over and over again. The building has meant a lot to a lot of people in so many ways, and so honor that, cherish that. We're going to have a ceremony, a closing ceremony, and then within the next couple of weeks, but just before we move out completely, to honor the time that we've spent there, to honor the building, to honor the property and the blessing that it has been to all of us. And we recognize that it's a building, and the building is not who we are. The community is who we are. And Creative Living Fellowship is a church. A church is not a building. A church is a community. And so the property there, the building has housed the church known as Creative Living Fellowship. So I want all of you to remember that we're not closing up shop. We're just closing up the building. And we are, we are embarking on a new incarnation right now, and we're not sure what that is. The wonderful thing about yesterday, I got a chance to meet a lot of people. In addition to seeing people I hadn't seen in a long time, I got a chance to meet some new people who were really excited about CLF. They've been watching us online, and there are some people I also met who want to become members of CLF. That is so exciting. What about new beginnings? This is what we're talking about, new beginnings. And new beginnings, irrespective of where we are when it comes to a physical space. And so I invite you to really step into the consciousness of new beginnings with enthusiasm, with excitement, with expectancy. Expectancy. That joy is, as Ernest Holmes says, joy is the emotion excited by the expectancy of good. Joy is the emotion excited by the expectancy of good. And so when we move into that energy of expectancy, we're expecting good. We're expecting good for CLF. It can only be good because CLF is a divine idea in the mind of God. And so just when we dare to believe that Creative Living Fellowship is a divine idea in the mind of God, then our minds are open. Our consciousness is available for expansion. I've shared with you before that when I first came there and started the Vision Corps a couple of years ago, the first things that started to come up as in response to what is God's vision for CLF was expansion. That word kept coming up for everybody. Expansion, growth, expansion, growth. More people started to come. We started to expand in different ways. We became attached to expansion, meaning being right there in the facility where we were. And it did, because we did expand, we did grow. But you know what? I came to realize that we were a bit attached to what expansion looks like. We were a bit attached to our definition of expansion, because we are expanding right now. We're expanding right now. We're expanding our reach because now we're online even more than we were. We always were live streaming our services, but now we are online only. So we expand our reach. We expand and in the meantime, we're expanding our consciousness. That's one of the the big things that I've been so aware of. And my intention in coming to CLF was to see a deepening in consciousness. And so our deepest intent has to be expanding consciousness. And so as we expand our consciousness, as we open our consciousness, we see all kinds of possibilities for CLF. And that's why I say fasten your seatbelts. Fasten your seatbelts. Keep those seatbelts fast and keep doing that spiritual practice and those practices. That's how we expand consciousness. That's how we expand consciousness. That's how we transform our lives. Continue to walk in love. Continue to be in that place of givingness, that place of love, that place of openness, that place of availability to the all that is. Continue to hold the desire to be all that you were created to be. Continue to do all those things. Continue to do all those things. Be willing to step into that expanded consciousness. Be willing to step into new beginnings, the consciousness of new beginnings. And you know, when there are new beginnings, there's so much excitement. Of course, there are things we don't know. We don't know where we're going to be holding service, but we know we are going to be as soon as the public health issues are resolved to the point where we can have services again. We will move our furniture out of storage and we will start to have services in person again. But right now, we have to be where we are. And right now, we're online and we invite you to be with us right where we are. To be with us right where we are. Let go of that why bother. No, it's not the way it used to be. And it's the way it is now. It's the way it is now. And so let's live fully in this now moment. Let's live fully in this now moment and be in this consciousness of new beginning, because we have embarked on new beginnings and we are in the midst of new beginnings. So bother to be in the midst of these new beginnings with us and walk this walk with us as we continue to be service for the divine, because that's what our lives are all about, being service for the divine. And that's what I'm inviting you to do. I'm inviting you today to bother with a joyful heart, a joy-filled heart, a sense of expectancy so that you can experience that joy that Ernest Holmes talks about. So I'm inviting you now, let's just turn within in this moment as we just take a deep breath and just allow ourselves to be service. Allow ourselves to be service. Allow ourselves to just be. And so just breathing into this place right here, right now, of knowing and sensing and feeling the allness and the fullness of God. The allness and the fullness of God that is right here, right now, right where we are. The allness of the full and the fullness of God that is all that there is. The only power, the only presence, the only mind, the only life, the only activity, the only breath is God. God is all there is. And this onlyness, this all that is my life. This all that is the life of each of us here. It is a source of all. And by whatever name we call it, it doesn't matter. It's the source of us all. And so just knowing that this allness and this fullness, this source is that from which I can never be separate. I just pause momentarily right now to speak the word for each of us this day. Just speaking a word of wholeness, speaking a word of certitude, that certitude of knowing that right where each of us is, God is, that God is guiding and directing our every step, each and every moment of each and every day, that God is right where we are in each and every moment of each and every day, that God is that presence from which we can never be separate, ever, on any circumstances. And so to the degree that anyone is believing or buying into a sense of separation from God, I know that that is dispelled right here and right now by the word that's being spoken, and the word of oneness and wholeness is being spoken for each of us right here and right now. I know that there's a releasing of doubt, of fear, of anxiety. There's a releasing of discounting. There's a releasing of pain and sorrow and regret and all that stuff that would block us from that experience and the allness and the fullness of God. All that's released and dissolved right here, right now. Pain in the body, illness, all that's released right here, right now by the word that's being spoken. And I'm knowing that there's a space created for love and for peace and for harmony and for balance and for joy and for healing in the body temple, knowing that every organ, cell, tissue function of the body, of anyone experiencing this ease, is experiencing the radiant healing presence of God right now. Anyone who's experienced loss of loved ones, loss, loss, loss that creates grief. I know that the great comforter that is God is right in the midst of everything that's going on. That great comforter that is God, that peace that passes human understanding is within each person. I'm calling it forth now, peace and peace of mind. I know that where there is a perception or an experience of lack, that in the midst of that is abundance and prosperity, for God is abundance itself. God is abundance itself. And so I know that all needs are met by the thing itself showing up, God showing up as whatever our need may be at any time, in any way, by whatever name we give it. I know that God is in the midst of everything that's going on. No matter what we name it, God is in the midst of it. And that wholeness is revealing itself everywhere there appears to be anything that is unlike wholeness. It is revealing itself because God is. And so I just pause momentarily now so that we may speak the names of anyone we'd like held in prayer this day. We speak their names silently or aloud, but you may speak them now. And so for all those whose names were spoken here this day, I know that God is. I know that God is right where each of them is, blessing and keeping them. I know that God is showing up in ways that they could not even imagine, that healing is happening in ways that cannot even be imagined, because God is. That allness and fullness of God is. This word goes out to our government officials. This word goes out to anyone needing a prayer this day. This word goes out knowing that where there's unrest, peace is, for God is in the midst. Where there's discord, peace is, for God is in the midst. Love is, for God is in the midst. Healing is, of all kinds, healing. In any area, healing, for God is in the midst. And so I simply say thank you, Father, Mother God, for the word spoken here this day. Thank you for the perfect manifestation of this word that is unfolding right here and right now. Thank you, God, for everything. For everything. For everything. I simply allow it to be. And so it is.